guys, welcome back to the Wholecoin journey. I suppose one of the main questions in the first place about starting up this channel is why Bitcoin? What makes this financial asset more lucrative and valuable to place your funds than any other asset out there? In this video, we're going to go on a journey and explain some of the reasons why I believe Bitcoin is the most beneficial asset out there for me. I suppose the main question is, why Bitcoin? First of all, unlimited scarcity. Bitcoin isn't just digital money. It's a monetary network built on maths. There will only ever be 21 million Bitcoin in existence ever. The circulating supply is more around about 14 or 15 million, given the fact that many addresses have been lost or people have died, plus also Satoshi's 1 million lockup in the first place. This isn't a promise from a government like you have on a cash note, or a policy introduced by the Bank of England or the Fed. It's enforced by code and distributed among the masses in nodes globally. This is what makes Bitcoin the scarcest financial asset in history. I would argue, at its core, Bitcoin is as scarce as our limited human time on this earth. That's where its inherent value begins, in my opinion. Take a look at this chart here, which demonstrates Bitcoin's fixed inflation and supply. We've already seen the majority of Bitcoins mined, with only about 1.5 million more over the next 100 years. If you, like me, believe the scarcity of something has inherent value, just look at gold for example over time, then take stock in the fact that if all the Bitcoins were mined today in the world and was distributed equally across all humans, then each person would only have access to 0.00245 Bitcoin, equivalent to about £197 in this day and age. Now, I won't ramble on, but a brief history about Bitcoin's creation occurred out of necessity after the 2008 banking crisis. Now, I'm no expert at all, but when the world plunged into recession, the financial decision makers at the time decided to spend their way out of trouble, instead of rectifying the issue in the first place, printing billions and billions of pounds to stimulate an economy to spend again. This screenshot here outlines a report from 2019 that indicated that even with increased budgets, governments still had no evidence at all that spending money on these projects were working for the greater good. I believe in this day and age, money has become a political conversation as opposed to an economic one. Now, with an increase in general currency circulation supply, I'm sure you'll find your pound doesn't go as far as it used to. Take, for example, the price of eggs over the last 5 or 6 years since COVID. We all know that went up. Because prices are increasing now, I believe these prices aren't necessarily increasing because of the production of the egg or of the good or the service has increased in price per se. What I think it's more likely down to is the fact that prices have increased because the value or the purchasing power of your pound or dollar has dropped significantly over time due to money printing. With an increase in circulating supply and a reduction in the purchasing power, therefore the physical quantity needs to increase to maintain that same value. So now more quantity of your pound coin or your dollar note is needed to purchase the same item, good or service as before. Therein lies the rub of inflation. Essentially more quantity for the same good or service. This favours those who already have a hard assets, gold, property, paintings, anything where hard assets are purchased prior would naturally increase in price now because the quantity of currency needed to fulfill that same transaction is required over time. So this becomes a spiral and it leads to the rich getting richer and the wealth gap, especially in the UK, widening across the board. As you can see via this chart here, You can see to the left the purchasing power of the pound over the last 50 or 60 years. This has a direct correlation with a much shorter time frame on the right hand side of the consumer price index over the last 5 or 6 years. As your money, as witnessed on the left hand side, devalues over time, the quantity needed to purchase that same good or service increases, which in turn therefore means increased price because of the direct correlation to the quantity of pounds needed. The next fundamental reason why Bitcoin could be a viable asset for the future is the notion of true ownership over one's estate. So true ownership or individual sovereignty is the idea that each person has a fundamental right to be the exclusive controller over their own life. This could be in your decisions, the form of your relationships, or even money. Ask yourself a question. Do you really own your own money? Now I ask this because it seems on the surface that you do. Because the current system, your money that you can log in to an online bank account and see the numbers there, and you perceive that you can take all that money out if you chose to. But what happens if everyone did that at the same time? Because the current financial system, your money is just a number on someone else's database, subject to the rules that you didn't write, policies that you didn't even vote on, and risks that you didn't even sign up for. We've seen people, as you can see in the screenshot, get debanked because of politics, protests, or even clerical errors. If your bank account gets frozen tomorrow, how long would you be able to last? Bitcoin, though, changes this. When you hold on to your own keys, your wealth is truly yours. You don't need approval, you don't need permission, you don't even need internet access to retain your individual ownership. Second question. Have you ever tried to deposit a large amount of cash into a bank at any one time? I'm certainly sure that you came fraught with questions, sometimes even forms that you had to fill in. Where did you get this money from? How did you get it? In some countries, your bank might even report you for suspicious activity that needs further investigation. It's your money, but suddenly you're treated like a suspect. With Bitcoin though, you're not interrogated. You don't need permission to transact, send or save your money. That is the true financial freedom. It's not about breaking laws. It's about breaking free from a system that treats you and every citizen like a risk that has to be managed. So in closing, Bitcoin, in my opinion, represents an opportunity to store wealth over time like no other asset before. Gold has had similar properties, but the main drawback there is its portability across locations. In my opinion, Bitcoin is the largest voluntary monetary asset ever. Literally no one asked you to join, but millions of nodes are now connected to a network to ensure security, all based on voluntary inclusion. As financial institutions continue to adopt and store, utilize Bitcoin in different ways, the use cases continue to grow, meaning that it becomes more accessible for people like you and I to accumulate Bitcoin for their everyday transactions, and also as a store of wealth. The Wholecoin Journey channel itself was created as I have come to believe that sound money matters. I've seen what inflation does to hard-working families. I've watched governments prioritize short-term fixes over long-term freedom in the term of money printing, always believing that they can spend their way out of trouble. I've realized that the tools for financial sovereignty do exist if we have the discipline to learn and use them, and I believe Bitcoin facilitates that all.